is in the building. Facto.
Welcome to the Ignorance Contagious podcast about stories and the lessons you learn from them. I'm Abdul Majid. Unfortunately, James had work obligations and couldn't be here today. So because of that, this will probably be one of the more ignorant episodes because we're talking about Freaknik. Recently, Hulu has released their Freaknik documentary, and Black social media have been sharing stories and discussing their experience during Black college spring break. With us today is a lover of all things funny, Kristen J. Thanks for
Hi.
coming to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Also with us today is our special guest, a friend of mine, Jacksonville's own light-skinned assassin, Vanessa Shell.
Hello, everybody.
So, the reason I chose this particular story is one because I thought that James went to, not Freaknik, but I thought he went to a spring break, but I wasn't exactly sure. I do know both of you went to college, and I wanted to know if you had any spring break or Black spring break experience. And I just thought it would be interesting just to see what you would come up with. And I had actually a subtopic. So the subtopic for this conversation is Black youth in ratchet culture. And I wanted to know if they were interchangeable or if they worked hand in hand. With that being said, Chris and Jay, take it away.
Okay, we have an article today that was written by Andrew Lawrence. Freaknik, behind the wild party that became a cultural phenomenon. A new documentary looks back on the college cookout that turned into a defining event for Black students in Atlanta and beyond throughout the 80s and the 90s. When Hulu announced plans to release a documentary on Freaknik last year, the news landed more like a threat. Freaknik aunties are shook, read one Revolt TV headline. TMZ reported that an older generation of ragers was freaking out. One TikToker who claimed to have attended several of the spring break festivals during the 90s heyday captured the prevailing mood among her peers. I don't know, y'all. We might be in trouble. There was a genuine fear that rewinding the tape from that time could eviscerate the Black bourgeoisie, embarrassing scores of career professionals and public figures if the unearthed footage didn't outright end their careers. A judge and politician were among 5 women who sued to stop the documentary from airing. P. Frank Williams, the director on the project, could relate. Not to say people overreacted, he says, but the whole people getting up in arms was a little bit funny and a little bit crazy at the same time. Ultimately, in the film, we tried our best to show that it was a fun, partying kind of time, but there were also a lot of cultural things that were going on as well. The resulting documentary, Freaknik, The Wildest Party Never Told, should set those initial concerns at ease while seizing on the voracious appetite for 90s nostalgia. The 82-minute film, which premiered on SXSW earlier this month, is less of an homage to BET's uncut era than a measured and balanced look back at the spring break festival that attracted scores of Black students to Atlanta during the 80s and 90s, playing a key role in establishing the city as a cultural hub and thriving community for an upwardly mobile Black class. Freaknik had come and gone by the time I was of college spring break age and seemed a world away from me in the Midwest. But the festival t-shirt I once scored from a local thrift shop did make me wonder. It featured cartoon partiers and one of the all-time great taglines, Freaknik, get in where you fit in. 20-some years later, here I am in Atlanta, raising a family. It's no coincidence. I love your story because I think it's a perfect example of the reach and cultural impact that Freaknik had, says showrunner Geraldine Porras, too young to have attended the festival as well. You had people who were coming from all over the country because they knew about Freaknik.
One of the other reasons that I wanted to talk about this topic is because the woman Sharon Toomer, who's on the documentary, is actually a friend of mine. And I know she was one of the creators of Freaknik. So, Christian, my first question is, during your time at college, did you go to Freaknik or any Black college weekend, any spring break weekend? And if so, do you have any good stories?
Yes, and as you know, I don't have stories. I just have moments. I went to North Carolina Central University, HBCU, ow, and I did not ever make it to Freaknik, but I did go to Virginia Beach. The first time that I went, we don't call out years, we just call out eras.
PC or AD?
Early hip hop. Oh, the good people can't see this response. They can't see that, but good people can feel it.
Okay.
The first time I went, it was so wonderful. It was Virginia Beach. It was beautiful. I had a waistline. I was sexy. It was all college students, and I felt safe. And it felt like a good environment of like-minded people who were just out there having fun, having a good time, and enjoying each other. And there was definitely a unity. And I want to say I went 3 years in a row. And by the third year, by the second year, you started to see a different element come into play. And I have to say, my college experience, every college that I visited, there was always that non-college drug dealer hanging out and his crew hanging out. I don't know what that was all about, but I mean, they flocked to the campuses. So the first year that I had gone, this wasn't the first year that it was going on. This was my first year. It was still all college students, but slowly the other element got hip to it. And by the third year, it was out of control. And that was before it even got out of control. This was just a little bit out of control, and I stepped away. I do remember I was in a hotel room. We were we were on the balcony, and I do remember overlooking the mistreatment of this one female, and it was insane. Guys and girls were crowded around her. She was heavy set. They took off, they were pouring drinks on her. They took off and filming it. So somebody's got that footage. They yanked off her bathing suit and they just were groping her, and it was all things wrong. And I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. And I did not feel safe. And I was like, I'm done, I'm good. And then I think it was like maybe the year after that, I did go to, because Jersey started doing something at Belmar Beach.
Yep.
And I went there because a friend of mine was like, yo, we're gonna all go to Belmar. I was like, oh, I'll drive down there and see what's going on. And it was a similar vibe. And I was like, can't do this. So I literally stopped going to Belmar Beach completely because of that. So I found another quiet beach down there in South Jersey because I love the beach.
So when you were watching Risa Tisa get molested, did you call the police?
Back. No, I did not, and I should have because it was bad. It was really bad, and I regrettably did witness that from the balcony. I guess I was just sitting there like, I can't believe this is happening.
Just a follow-up question. Did you know any girls that you went, or women, I should say, that you went to college with that dated drug dealers? Because I knew a bunch of drug dealers mostly dated college women. And all the college women who they dated, who I spoke to, loved them because they got to buy all the fancy stuff and the nice stuff and gave them money while they were in college. And
Yes.
so do you think that's the element, how the element got there to the schools? Because these girls were dating these drug dealers and word carries,
Um, so you blaming females again.
I'm not blaming females. I didn't blame the females for
You blame
the
females for
chaos.
everything. Everything that
I
goes
know,
on. It's
right?
like you
Look at
women,
me being a
it's the
misogynist.
woman's fault.
Yeah, I'm the problem, but you watch Risa get molested and do nothing. But it's all of a sudden my fault.
So
at least I would have jumped in.
Back is Risa. That's right there. You're so disrespectful, Slappy.
What?
Big Back now has a new name, Risa. So wrong. Risa, that's Abdul.
It goes hand in hand.
Risa, that's Abdul saying that, okay? you be brave, Risa. I think that yeah, probably. I mean, they were gonna get in there anyway, but I definitely had somebody in college that we were roommates, and she dated a drug dealer. The only difference I think is that he was in New Jersey, so it wasn't like he was hanging out on campus every day, all day. But when he and his crew did come down, I never benefited from his visits, but everybody would go out to eat and it'd be on the drug dealer, oh, we all went to dinner and he sponsored, and I always somehow missed that. I mean, I'm okay with it, but it was just like, damn, y'all had fun like that? What?
Couldn't bring me a sandwich, not a burger?
No, they were eating lobster. They were balling like that back then.
Lobster and scrimp.
Lobster and
Lobsters?
champagne. Yeah, they were balling. So it's like that would have been nice for a college student to, get in on that. But no, I did not. But
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely knew somebody that dated a drug dealer while in college. Yes.
Yeah, I knew several. Vanessa, same
Yeah.
question. During your time at
Um,
college, did you go to Freaknik or any Black college weekend? And if so, do you have any good stories? And tell where you went to college.
all right. Well, so Freaknik was a little before my time. And let me caveat this by saying that, and shut up, Abdul. But let me caveat this by saying first that my brother is 10 years older than me. Okay. And so he was the guy with the camcorder, and he was the one who went to Daytona Beach. And I believe he went to Freaknik. And when I watched the documentary, I was definitely afraid that I would either see my brother or my ex-husband on those videos. So let me just start there. But I am a Floridian, born and raised. So I went to Florida State. So it was a PWI, but FAMU was around the corner. So we still partied, you know, with everybody. So yeah, Freaknik, like I said, I came out in 97 from high school. So Freaknik was already, you knew not to go. And then my brother ruined it for me to go to any Daytona because he would come back with video footage that him and my dad would watch, and then that pretty much prevented me from ever having to go. One year Daytona Spring Break was held in Jacksonville, and I do know I have an old friend of mine who she was actually carjacked and raped, and the guy who was walking her to her car was killed walking her to her car.
God damn, you done
So
fucked up all the jokes.
I'm sorry,
All the
but
jokes. Murder and rape. Thanks, Vanessa. On the next episode of the Ignorance Contagious podcast, we'll be ending this shit right now. No,
no,
I'm sorry. Keep
but
going.
no, but okay. So, but I did participate in Miami. I want to say it was my senior year at Florida State. One of my really good friends, we all went down, and I actually have some pictures. I still have some of the evidence. But we went down to Miami and had a ball. Yeah, and this was before Miami started wilding out for, Memorial Day and all of that. But we would just go down there for spring break because it's spring break, you want to go to the beach. So, like you, Kristen Zola, we had to hit somebody's beach.
Do you have any good stories? And well, two questions. Oh, two follow-up questions. One, do you have any good stories? And two, what were on the videos that your brother and your father were watching?
So yeah, I never saw those videos, but it was enough for my mom to say that I could never ever go. So
Okay.
they were pretty bad. So my brother was the type of guy that he would be that guy like who, Kristen Zola saw, pouring drinks on somebody. Like I grew up with that nigga. I'm sorry, Kristen.
Hold on, Kristen, just for the record, her brother. So I thought your brother would get away with murder because her brother looks like Genuine, the singer
With green eyes.
with green eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would get away with murder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
what it is, but sisters love different color eyes.
Listen, and we'll give them a pass, and I'm just like, he's a loser. He won't see this. He won't hear this. So I think I'm safe. I can safely say that.
Well, you
Like,
said it lovingly. You said it lovingly. So
did I though? Oh.
trying to save you.
But do I have any I don't have any salacious stories from
Those stories.
not really. I mean, we used to be able to get into the clubs for free because the guys would be like, especially if it's a group of pretty girls, you kind of get breaks, free meals, yeah,
Okay.
but nothing salacious. Sorry, Ab.
Well, I went to school for sound engineering. I didn't go technically to a college, but I went to school for sound engineering. I did go to multiple spring breaks, and I saw a lot of stuff. I saw people having sex outside. I saw people doing stuff in cars. Saw a lot of drugs. met a lot of the drug dealers that were out there because a lot of the drug dealers from New York and New Jersey would go down. So if they used to have something in New Jersey, have a beach party. They had something at Jones Beach, Freaknik. They had even in Texas they had something. What's the one in Texas they had? Uh, I think that was called the Kappa Beach Party too. But anyway, all of them, there was a lot of. I didn't go to the Kappa Beach Party. My boy Dahani went to Kappa Beach Party. He told me stories about that. The ones that I went to, I saw every and anything you can think of. I went to a Luke event, which was a locked door event. All the strippers from everywhere got called. They go into a club, they lock the doors, and whatever you can think about happens in there. People getting their dick sucked on stage, and women naked, and women twerking in the middle of the thing naked, and people having sex around the corner. And then what normally happens at these events is then the niggas show up, and then the fight breaks out, and then the police comes, and then everybody has to go home. So that was my experience with Black College Weekend. It was fun. It was very dangerous. You do see a lot of dangerous people there. There were some people who, when I was in town, whose names that I won't say, and I'll tell you guys off camera because you know who these people are because you've heard their names before. And I'm like, what is he doing here? Number one, I know he barely graduated from high school.
Rhymes with? Sounds like?
It's an island and another word for pancakes.
You said pancakes?
Yeah.
What in the chilling Jeopardy?
I'll tell you off camera. I'll tell you
Island
off
and pancakes.
camera. Yep.
R. Kelly? No.
Yeah. Did I see R. Kelly? No. I got an R. Anyway, I do have an R. Kelly story. Oh, my simple R. Kelly story is remember my friend. I won't say her name. She was dating R. Kelly's manager. They needed the videotape to use in court. They couldn't get it because the videotapes were considered child pornography and got taken off the street. Mm-hmm. She knew I had a copy of it and called me and asked me if they could pay me for the video.
You didn't get in trouble for possessing child pornography?
I didn't know it was child pornography.
I didn't know it's not an excuse.
So your friend dated a co-conspirator.
So I freely gave them. They allegedly gave them a video for it was the one that they used in court. Comes from me. Yeah,
so
that's my R. Kelly story because my friend was dating R. Kelly's manager. My next question. Now that you two are gonna have me looked up by the feds.
Wait, Slap. They don't need to look you up. You're right here.
Yeah, all right.
I just want to say that there was something, again, only a moment, not a story. The decline of the
We're gonna get to that. I do have a question about that.
I may not remember, but go ahead.
No, I'm gonna ask you the question about anyway. So the next question. Did you watch the Hulu documentary and what were your thoughts, Vanessa?
Yes, I watched it. I thought it was good. I thought it was very well rounded. I was, based off of the initial hype and, and these people trying to stop the documentary from airing. Like, I thought it was going to be a little spicier than what it was. And so I was pleasantly surprised to see the history behind it because I didn't know the history. I had no idea of the history or that it started with the DC club or anything like that. Just people who live in Atlanta, sometimes they think they invent everything. So I just initially thought this was just something that it was just an Atlanta thing. And people just, from all over just came to see what it was, to be a part of it.
What was your takeaway from it? I was told because of the lawsuit that they had to re-edit. So some of the stuff that was on the more salacious side got taken out because of the lawsuit. That's why it got delayed because it was supposed to be released earlier and got pushed back because of the re-edits and the lawsuit and all other stuff that happened. I think it might be a whole different documentary if the original version or the intended version came out.
So, one other comment that I have about it is, Luke ruined it. I think that's it. Kind of just it took on more of the freak and less of the neek when he came into the picture. It seemed like, based off of the documentary, that it had a little bit more purpose initially. But then again, once people hear about it, then it's, like they even said in the documentary, like, you have these 40-year-old guys coming and showing up for Freaknik, and this is supposed to be a college event. So not only is it the drug dealers or the wannabe rappers or the up and coming rappers, but you just have people, hey, won't y'all come down? It's making it an event, kind of like, how Memorial Day with Miami spring break has been ruined.
They shut that down this year, didn't they? I
They
believe
did.
they put a whole commercial together about shutting down.
Don't come down here.
So
Yeah,
Kristen,
but
oh, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
no. I was just gonna say, but Miami spring break, that was like some of the best partying of my life.
And you still can't remember anything that you did down there? Nothing at all?
No,
Nothing?
it was a lot of weed, it was a lot of alcohol,
Okay.
and I plead
Kristen,
the fifth
same.
on the rest.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Kristen, same question. Did you watch the Hulu documentary? And what were your thoughts, if so?
I did watch it. Shout out to P. Frank Williams. I did watch the documentary, and I totally believe that, yeah, it probably did have to edit down some of that stuff because I I remember seeing some commercials or something prior to it being an issue, and I didn't see those same clips when I watched the documentary. So yeah, they cleaned some stuff up. It was nice though too. I think they did a good job balancing it because they talked about the origin of it being from the college students having something to do. Um, and I guess that was kind of the universal thing on all around because, like I said, we went to Virginia Beach, and that was a college thing. And there's a different mindset when you have college students and non-college students. Um, and when you have the non-college students, and that's not to say that people who don't go to college aren't good people. It's just that there's a different mentality when just sometimes we got the element joined in and ruined Christmas for everybody. It got ratchet. Luke, it did. From looking at the documentary, I agree with Vanessa. It seemed like Luke just came in there, put his little touch on it, and then all hell broke loose because like I said, the first year I went to Virginia Beach, I felt safe. I felt comfortable. I felt protected. I felt secure. These fine black college men all around just looking good on the beach, just there to make sure I'm good. I was like, this is a wonderful. And then the next year, brothers that would probably punch a sister in a heartbeat. So yeah, but I thought he did a good job with the documentary because he did share that element of it where it did take a turn with the sexuality, just the groping, the video footage. Everybody had a camera. So even though it wasn't social media, everybody had a camera back then.
Yes. So I do have a follow-up question then I'll ask after my thoughts on the documentary. I had issues with it. One, anytime there's a documentary pertaining to Black men, it always makes them look bad. And knowing what happened at those spring breaks, it wasn't just the men who were wilding out the way they said. And it wasn't just the men who were causing a disruption. And the fact that they cleaned it up because of our current climate, but they don't clean it up when it comes to other documentaries on Hulu pertaining to Black men. Like, they'll let it, if something's pertaining to Black men and it's horrific stuff, they'll show it. They have no problem showing it. Even if people are upset about it, I can think of several documentaries that were on there that people were like, why'd they show this and why'd they do that? And they, oh, well, that's the truth. Let the truth be told, right? But now with this particular documentary, because it makes a certain group of people look bad, they clean it up because of the climate we have, because of if you know the history of where the documentary comes from, it's part of a group called the Black Honest Collective that was set up by Disney. to show Black content. All of the people who run the Black Ops Collective, the 4 people who are in charge, all Black women. So I can understand why they cleaned it up to a degree. That was my only issue with it. It was, I saw what happened. I knew what was going on down there. And from my experience and from all the experience of people I had conversations with, there was a lot going on inside and outside.
So what were the things that you personally experienced and know that women did to contribute to the ratchetness that was not represented in the documentary?
Soliciting of sex for prostitution,
That's
all
a
the alcohol.
profession. That's a profession. Go on.
We're talking about the drug dealers who came into town. I'm talking about all the prostitutes who came into town. A lot of them were strippers who were soliciting sex for money. A lot of those women came into town.
It's a business.
But it caused the debauchery, is what I'm saying.
But nobody's getting hurt. If a woman says, hey, I got that happy,
says it was a crime.
Who's getting hurt?
What about all the fights that were happening? There were a lot of women. There's a lot of video footage of women fighting at spring break that didn't show. Matter of fact, even a story that they told. Just drunk and fighting at parties and bars. Just women beefing with other women and fighting.
Okay.
That caused the chaos. Both men and women openly having sex in public calls for the police to show up. I'm not saying that it is good or bad or otherwise. That I'll leave my opinion out. The point I'm making is that they wouldn't show
the balance
it. They wouldn't show it because it made a particular group of people look bad. But anytime it comes to Black men, they would show it. Huh?
They talked about it though. I mean,
that's
they
not
talked
the same.
about.
It's not the same.
Yes, it is. I mean, because we all knew. I mean, because again, if you didn't know the history, if you didn't know that backstory of Freaknik, you would think from the outside looking in, oh, this is like a freak fest. So the assumption is, okay, so it's debauchery. It's whatever goes, right? You know, like, because I heard plenty of stories about the women, butt naked women walking down the street. I didn't need to see it though.
But they didn't have any problem showing the dude groping the girls, coming out, pulling the girl out the car, and they didn't have any problem showing that.
Yeah, but then they also
showing the guys groping the women all down the.
But they also showed those women smiling too. So.
But did you hear? But it was the video was overlaid by audio, which was saying something completely different than what the video was saying.
In every instance, though.
Not in every instance, but I didn't see the balance is what I'm trying to say. I didn't see the reverse. I didn't see anyone say, oh yeah, well, the women were really turned up too, grabbing on guys and all the other stuff. I didn't see that either.
Are you so desensitized to twerking that you didn't notice the asses up at every camera? Women were doing that. Women were definitely early twerking. Wasn't it called booty popping or something back then?
Booty shaking.
Yeah, booty shaking.
Booty shaking.
That sound like Nana. What they call it?
but going back to what you're saying, that was booty shaking. They did show the grinding and booty shaking, but like you said before, that wasn't a crime. But that's the.
I think I know I was messing with you, but I think maybe weren't there a couple of flashers that were shown kind of sort of quickly?
I thought so.
Based on what I knew,
based
on what I knew, the original video came. What the original documentary was supposed to look like, they took a lot out. It took a lot out and put a lot of stuff in.
We can't speak to what we can't see. We can only speak to the documentary. So you can't. You're cheating a bit. That's not cool. Come on.
He's taking her side. He's speaking my friend.
Yes,
No, other than that, I thought the documentary, because it was on Onyx Black Collective, and that's a big part of it, where it was established and where it was shown. It was part of the Onyx Black Collective, and their initiative is to show a lot of positive, more wholesome Black content, because the woman who, and I want to call her the woman because I don't know her name off the top of my head. She was also in charge of Freeform, which is part of Disney that does more children's stuff. That's where you get Grownish is on Freeform and things like that. So they took that sensibility, sort of put it with, that's where the Q-tip the Questlove, I'm sorry, the Questlove documentary came out. That was also part of the Honor Black Collective. So they tried. I understand that's part of the reason why they had wanted to clean it up. But I do know, watching other things on Hulu, that this for my sensibility, when it comes to black men, they'll show whatever and don't care, and the argument will be, well, if it's the truth, let it be shown. And
I'm
in this particular
saying,
case, there was a lot out there that they cut out because people had concerns and there were lawsuits about it. And those people were high profile.
but that wasn't a guarantee that they would have made it on the director's cut. I don't know. I mean, for that part of it, for me, it was like a hit dog will holler, because I get what you're saying. However, wasn't it mostly men doing the recording?
I don't know that to be true. I know there was a lot of people recording on both sides. Personally, I know women who had recordings. I know men who had recordings.
But they
Now,
even
more men had recordings than I knew than women did. But what are you saying, Kristen?
Right.
they even addressed the women kind of coming into their own sexuality and asking for it. When the guy's like, "Let me see your tatas," and she's like, "Let me see your D." So they talked about it. They showed where the women were feeling themselves too.
Yeah, they did. And and I liken that to, like how how going to high school, and like you had those girls who like their dad was overprotective, and then as soon as they hit college, they had trains run on them.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like I have story after story after story, because like my mom would always drill in me, don't be the girl on every scene. Be selective about where you choose to show your face and what you do. Because yes, people are watching, and this was, like my technology was the internet, looking up Bone Thugs and Harmony lyrics, because that's all we had, in pagers.
My next question is a follow-up question to what you just said. For guys, a big part of spring break is getting women's phone numbers. In a recent court case, it was discovered that Fulton County, Georgia's DA, Fannie Willis, is labeled as Gorilla Grip Pussy Pal in a man's phone. This is a two-part question. One, do you or have you labeled someone other than their names in your phone? And if so, what? And part two, what name other than yours do you think is in someone else's phone? Kristen, first.
I have no idea what name I'm under in somebody else's phone.
No, what? No. What name do you think? Just go off a whim. What name do you think you're labeled in someone else's phone? And do you have someone, or have you had someone labeled in your phone as something other than their name?
Yes, I have had somebody else in my phone is Super Dick.
Super Dick.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory, but what's funny though is I was sharing with him a conversation that I had with a friend about him, and I said, "Yeah," so I'm like, "Yeah, so Super Dick is going to be in town," and he said, "Wait, who is Super Dick?" I was like, "That's you," and he was like, Wait, you're having a conversation with your friend and you call me that?" And I was like, "Yeah, you got a problem with that?" And he was like, "Well, no, but."
Not Super Dick. Did Super Dick have a cape? Was there like a cape emoji attached to Super Dick's name? Was it SD?
No cape
Just
was
Super
needed.
Dick, huh?
No cape was needed.
Okay. Okay.
But I don't know what I'd be in somebody else's phone. Just probably some dumb shit like Boo Boo or something stupid. But I don't know.
Super
I'm so
Cheeks. What about Super Cheeks?
Are you asking me? Is that what I'm in somebody's phone? Is Super Cheeks?
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Okay.
And we didn't have all that going on. Now in college, I might have had a name. I don't know. Not because I was out there, but wherever I was, I left a mark. What? No, that sounds so like something else. But no, I mean, no.
Okay,
Because
Vanessa.
because I was
Hold up.
super selective. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
but
no, no, keep going.
because I was so selective and so careful and so mindful and not so out there, that like when a guy did get my attention, it was just like, oh, you got with her? She actually gave you some attention. That's the only thing. I was never that girl, but I was so. And when I went to college, I had a boyfriend for the first 3 years, so it was like, nah, yeah, she got a man. They knew that. So when I broke up with him, and that was the one that cheated. Remember
Mhm.
when I broke up with
I
him?
remember.
He's a bum, but that's my dude. When I broke up with him, then it was just like, okay, so I think the fellas who thought they were gonna pounce on me did not get to pounce on me. Like, cause when you're a freshman, you're prey.
Mhm.
You're prey. You know that, right? Vanessa, you went in there and you were just like, I already know. Don't show up at all the parties. Let me just lay low. Let them miss me. Let them wonder. Leave a little mystery. So when I was finally single, it was just like, I think they thought, who got next? And it just never quite. So that's my story. Thank you for listening. Go ahead, Slappy. I'm sorry.
No, Vanessa, same question. Have you or do you have anybody? That was the other question. Have you or do you have anybody's name labeled other than their name in your phone? One. And two, what do you think someone would have you labeled in their phone?
Okay, college Vanessa, they would probably have Nikki in their phone for me. Nicole is my middle name, but it was also my alter ego. So I was Nikki that went to fam. So, but
I thought you went to Florida State.
well, Vanessa
Talking
went
about
to
where
Florida State,
talking about where
but
she
Nikki went
parked.
to fam. So when I partied, my name was Nikki. That was my club name.
Keep up, Slappy.
I understood. I was letting the audience.
Nikki went to fam. What?
Nikki with the fam. So if somebody called me Nikki, who is that? To this day, people be like, you got a twin. You would never met her. Her name was Nikki. She went to fam. What? No, never met her.
Mm.
But as an adult, my name would probably be Flake because I'm kind of hot and cold. Like I'll be on the scene until I'm not. I'm a true Scorpio. Like I get over things quite easily. Now to answer your question about the names in my phone, yes, and I actually have two stories. First one is Glade, like the air freshener can, because this dude sent me a picture of his dick next to a Glade can. So I was like, instantly, I have to hop on that. So his name is Glade in my phone, and then I have another one named Libby. Do I need to explain that one? Libby makes
Libby?
Vienna sausages.
Oh.
AKA, that's the dude who, your first red flag when a guy has, a small dick is they'll do anything and everything but have sex with you. So you're kind of tipped off, And again, that goes back to the story ab of the, once the legs go behind your head, what can you do?
Libby. Libby and Glade.
But
Okay.
I got the nicknames. So I got Mr. Kissy Face.
Mm-hmm.
He want to make kissing noises when he give you a kiss, or you Mr. Kissy Face. I have nicknames for days, but Glade is probably the best. The
Okay.
best nickname. Let me clarify.
So let me think. I do have people's nicknames in certain phones, but they're really, unless you know the backstory, they're really sort of benign. Like there's Butterfly and there's chewing gum. Okay, so Butterfly, she got the name Butterfly because she had a tattoo of a butterfly on her vaginal region. So there was like a wing on one left, and then there's a wing on the other one, and then that's how she got the name Butterfly. Chewing gum.
Please explain because my thoughts are taking me there.
Think think of the same reason for butterfly, but it's attached chewing gum.
So the chewing gum got stuck.
No, it looked like chewed up bubble gum.
Oh.
Slappy, I got a nickname for you in my phone. It's this nigga. Wait, though. Remember when we were standing online at Cuts and Slices and the girl's cell phone rang and it literally said this?
This nigga, yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm
We were
kidding.
we were in Brooklyn, getting pizza from this pizza place, and it took 4
3.
hours.
Wasn't it 3 hours?
Thought it
For
was
pizza?
4.
Cuts and
She was
Slices.
Cuts and Slices in Brooklyn. Matter of fact, it was
Oxtail.
around this.
Sweet chili oxtail pizza.
They're pretty good,
Ooh.
but
Mm.
while we were waiting online, this woman had a cell phone. She was in front of us. No, she was standing in front of us. Mind you, she was out of her mind. I thought she was crazy.
She was.
Kristen, huh?
She was. She was crazy.
She was out of. She was told us all her whole business about her kids and what was going on, and getting on the phone and talking really loud so we can get into her conversation, that sort of stuff.
Oh.
And anyway, but her phone said this nigga. The name on the phone said this nigga.
Literally DIIIIS.
Yeah.
This nigga.
Yeah. NIIIIGA. Yeah. And that cracked me up. That cracked me up. I said, that's Slappy's new name.
Most of my brothers on my phone, I don't have as their name. I have as something else. Kristen, I think your name is no, it's just Kristen. Vanessa, what do I have you as my phone at? I think I might be.
It better be Vanessa.
No, it's oh no, it's V and then your former last name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now I do have a picture. Hold on. I don't know if you can see it, but you right there. You know.
Oh, ignorance is contagious. Young Slappy.
Yeah.
young,
Mhm.
young innocent Slappy.
I
Before
don't know
he
about innocent. You talking shit for years.
those
He's
were
been innocent for a
innocent.
while.
You didn't see the smile on my face. Those are the innocent years.
That's a smirk.
So, but outside of
I
that,
gotta
yeah,
look at it again.
there's some other names I have in there as nicknames. If I were to be in someone else's phone, I originally thought Slappy would be one of them. He's an asshole in this one girl's phone. She has me labeled that he's an asshole. I know that for a fact. But we're friends. So, but she does have me labeled that he's an asshole. That's all I can
I
think
love how we didn't even respond to that, right, Vanessa? We're like, yeah.
of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have similar friendships with her, like I have with you guys. So all I do is joke and talk around, and I just make fun. And she's like, "Oh, you're such an asshole." But here's the thing: like both of you, she goes, "Oh, you're such an asshole," and then add on to the joke I just made.
Oh yeah.
I'll say something wild, and she's like, "Oh, you're such an asshole," and then just, "Oh yeah," and you know that, blah blah, and there. So.
Oh, that's Slappy, bringing out the best
All
of
right.
everybody.
So we're going to go on to the next section, Kristen.
Okay. Altogether, Freaknik only ran for 16 years from 1983 through 1999. The film does an admirable job of unpacking its history with the Washington, D.C. college kids who dreamed up the gathering for fellow peers who were likewise stranded during spring break with nothing to do. So they organized a picnic starting at Atlanta's Piedmont Park before moving to the grounds of the Atlanta University Center Consortium, the quadrangle that binds the historically Black colleges of Morehouse, Spelman, and Clark Atlanta University. The event title was just a portmanteau that combines picnic with Le Freak, the chic coin disco hit that was all the rage at the time, and set the freeing tone. It wasn't long thereafter, Freaknik co-founder Emma Horton recalls in the film that Black college students went from can't go home to don't want to go. As word spread and the crowds swelled into hundreds of thousands, Freaknik evolved into a cultural bazaar for fashion trends, dance crazes, and spring flings, a vibe that was soon captured in the music of local hip-hop impresario Jermaine Dupri and dispersed around the country by festival goers. It wasn't until Luther Campbell came on the scene in 1993 that the DC Kids picnic turned into a more hedonistic affair, one that had camcorder-wielding onlookers zooming in to check out the girls in the Daisy Dukes, who reciprocated the ogling. To watch the mutual admiration is to be transported back to a time when there wasn't the pressure from social media to have a perfect body or drive a nice car, says Williams, who did attend the festival in the 90s. It turns out those kids got along fine, carpooling in minivans and geo-trackers. Although not nearly enough to ease the massive traffic jams and keep the sprawling party from spilling on the highways, the whole city was a safe space.
So I'll add on to the last statement that the person said in the article. My first question to you, Kristen. At one point, Freaknik went from a wholesome spring break to a ratchet street party. What do you think caused it?
I think Vanessa nailed it when she said Uncle Luke came on the scene. Woo! And there's that other element that once that other element comes on, it's like all things good just go sour. Everything. I don't know what, because I was going to say the quality of, remember before I was about to get to it, and luckily I didn't forget, the quality of fun is different for a certain group of people than it is for college goers. Like that's a different mindset. College goers are just into a certain kind of fun that doesn't match that other group. And like, again, I want to clarify that just because somebody doesn't go to college, doesn't make them a bad or negative person. There is still yet a different group that I'm referring to, and their idea of fun often just ruins Christmas for everybody. When I went to one of the Belmar events, they had the big water guns. They started putting bleach in them.
I remember that.
Who does that?
I remember that. They were shooting people with bleach. That's when
What the
cross
hell
colors.
is
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Why would you do that? Why? That's the complete opposite of this whole event and why we're here to have a good time. I don't feel safe. I don't know what the hell is going on. I don't know who's who and what's what. And actually, it's so crazy because that particular one time that I went to Belmont, the first time when I was just like, ooh, this is too much going on. I saw a guy that I'm pretty sure I knew him from Upward Bound at Seton Hall. I'm pretty sure. But in the Upward Bound Seton Hall, sounds reasonable, right? I'm pretty sure that's where I knew him from. But I said to him, I said, hey, this dude turns around and says, did we fuck? And I'm just like, yes, clutch the pearls. I was just like, not at all, and walked away. But
I
I was
wasn't
just,
super dick.
come on now. You need to ask no question like that. Come on now. No, but no, it was just, that was like, to me, that was so disrespectful and unnecessary because it was a genuine, don't I know you from somewhere? And I'm like trying to recall, and he says that. And I was just like, I was disgusted, and I was like, not at all. I walked away. So there was a whole different thing going on.
But
See, me and my smart mouth, I would have said you would have remembered.
I did have the opportunity to tell somebody else that.
you told somebody else that?
Yeah, somebody else that, yeah, I did. Somebody
Oh,
else that we didn't speak because he had done me in Florida.
Tell me that story. You did tell me that story.
And he left me. His story was he left who he thought was me and didn't call me back and thought that who he thought was me that he did. I was upset because he never called me again. And I'm like,
Oh,
not
That
at
person's
all.
pretty well known. Would you say that person's pretty well known?
In the Black community, yeah.
In the Black community, yeah.
In Black world, yeah. Like,
Okay, so let me give a little pushback to what you were saying. From what I understand, what Freaknik was an everyday occurrence on the weekends at most colleges. The drinking, the partying. The only difference between Freaknik and what was happening at these Kappa parties or these Omega parties or what have you is that there were more people. So it's the quantity of people is what made it bad, not the quality of what was going on, because that was going on every weekend at probably every college and university. Would you disagree?
what?
The
Say that
partying, all the drinking and the sex and all the things that were going on at Freaknik were happening on the weekends at most colleges. It was happening inside a fraternity house or at a party or in some dorm. The difference between Freaknik and what was happening was the amount of people doing it as opposed to what they were doing.
I hear what you're saying, I think. you're referring to the activities. You're saying the activities were
Yes.
still taking place. Yeah, but there is still a different comfort level when you know that there's a fellow college student because they're trackable, they're traceable. Like if I know that you go to such and such university, I may not know you directly, but I can find something out about you. But randoms from just the town or out of state, you're on your own.
Right. And there's a big difference with one-on-one versus a group of 10. But I do agree with you, Ab, because, especially if you lived in a dorm that was not co-ed, or, it had a curfew where the member of the opposite sex couldn't be caught in your room. There was a lot of having sex in the bushes, or because as a freshman, you didn't have a car. Most of us didn't anyway. It wasn't allowed on campus. So there was that. But that wasn't that common. It was common, but not to the same scale as what you saw at Freaknik or Daytona, because women were being pulled into vans in Daytona too.
Yeah, there was definitely stuff going on college life. Now, I was always a witness, never a participant, but
Right.
camcorders there was something, I think they called it the red light special or something like that, where guys would record sex activities from the closet, or they would have a camcorder on and women
In the
didn't know
bookcase.
about it. Yeah, women
Mhm.
didn't know about it. That's wrong is what it is. There were definitely trains.
I was about to say every orgy story I've ever heard from someone who had it, it was in college. Most of them.
Story.
Yeah, because your parents weren't
Orgy.
there.
Orgy.
You weren't worried about your mom or your dad popping up to come pick you up early.
I was in the
Oh,
closet.
I get it.
Did I tell you that story?
So you heard? So you heard.
Another R. Kelly.
Allegedly. Yes, Kristen, I want to hear this story. What were you doing in an orgy?
I didn't say I was in an orgy. I was not in
Okay,
a room.
let's skip to the next question.
No, remember I said I was never a participant, always a bystander. A group of friends were sitting down watching a movie, and one of the guys was like, "Damn, I'm horny as hell. Who can I call? Who can I call?" And it kind of shocked me because I'm just like, you can just call somebody. Some things I kind of thought like duh with, because I was like, you can just call somebody and get it. He was like, "Who can I call? I know who I can call." So we're not paying him any attention, and then he somehow says, "You guys go upstairs in so and so's room and get in the closet." So I was like, "What's going on?" My brain thought, okay, we're going to get to witness him attempt to get some, right? We're going to hear if he got game. There was no conversation. He came in the room. They went to town. And I'm like, oh, you guys can't see me, but I'm gasping and putting my hand over my mouth like, oh my God. So
She's a peeping Tom.
couldn't believe, yeah, I was a voyeur, and I didn't plan on that, but now I'm too deep in it because I can't bust out the closet now. It's me and two other people in the closet. I can't, and I just knew one of the other people in the closet. I just knew that person was going to be the one to bust the door open, and it was just like this was a hard spot to be in because I did not expect it to be that. And what made it so bad is the friend that was getting down. He entertained us fully. She was going to town on him, rocking his mic, and her back was to us, and he's waving at us, smiling, and he's like pointing at her head, and he's going, "Save some for the birds," like he's making jokes. He's doing her, he picks her up, he brings her right next to the closet door, and he's holding her, doing her. And he's smiling, like her face is facing the other way, and his face is right in the crack of the door, smiling at us. So it took everything not to just kick the door open and be like, "Stop, I can't take it," because it was so funny. I couldn't believe it. And then to see that girl, her bottom lip was a kind of big, so we kind of called her drag lip after that. To see this poor girl on campus that we witnessed him just like go to town on was humiliating, and it was a college experience. That was a story.
I would have grabbed some popcorn, especially if it was good.
I didn't know that was the setup. I really thought we were going to hear him try to get some. I didn't know there was no conversation because I didn't get down like this. So I didn't know girls got down like this. I didn't know you could just make a phone call. This is a while ago now. I didn't know you could just make a phone call and get some. I didn't know chicks was out there like that. So I mean, you know, so much is different today. Everybody's just doing everything, but I didn't know that.
Never like that 20, 30 years ago too, though. You could pick up the phone and call somebody.
And get some.
I know several people could do that and have done that, and I know several people who were like you, had the sneaky recordings or would put up cameras and
Whoa. You
like
know, some
like
that were like me sneaking recordings. I wasn't
no. What I meant to say, I know several people like the story one of you guys told about people. We were talking earlier about people recording sneakily and putting up cameras on.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Anyway, so
neither one of us said that we did that. We just said that it
sure he didn't.
happened.
Sure he
It
didn't. Yeah, sure he
happened.
didn't.
You
Sure he
don't be
didn't.
you won't get
No,
Sure
that
he didn't.
story right.
I know
you
several
heard
people
about it.
who did exactly what you did, Kristen. Putting up cameras and panoramic visions and tripods and lighting gear. Yeah,
That's
Night vision.
funny. Shut up.
night vision. Yeah.
Producing a
No,
poem.
I actually do know a person who actually keeps a stash of a lot of stuff he does, and
Wow.
yeah. So, and it's I don't like cameras. I think
Rhymes with
everybody.
happy.
No, because I don't like cameras. I don't even keep cameras around me. I don't like video being recorded. I don't like none of that stuff. So,
hmm
but
Is it you're afraid that you'll end up on a documentary on Hulu?
so Vanessa. No, it's not because I will end up on a documentary on Hulu.
Pornhub?
Maybe Amazon Prime.
X
Max.
videos.
Yeah, X videos. Yeah. Was the one something rabbit or
Or
red?
even worse, you
Red tube.
don't end up on anybody's site.
Yeah. We got
I'll be
jokes.
here all week. No, I'm teasing.
Flatfish.
But
So Vanessa, same question. What do you think caused the demise of Freaknik?
I think it's Luke, and I think it was the word of mouth. Like once it spread outside of the college experience, and then my homeboys this, my homegirls that, and they never set foot on one college campus. It's just we just coming because we heard we want to be a part of this experience, and I think a combination of all of those things made it go left after what 16 years you said.
yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah. See, and I only knew about it from the 90s. So
I think it was more word of mouth than Luke. I won't put all the blame on him. I think he provided the soundtrack for it. I don't think he was the only person that provided the soundtrack for it, but I do think more word of mouth and a lot of lies, I have to say, from people who go, "Oh, I went to Freaknik," and then tell some outlandish story of how they did, and it was sort of heathenism. And I don't think the drug dealer element or the dudes with the money, the street dudes with the money, I think that caused part of the demise as well, because they also brought another element. But I don't think it was Luke per se. I think he gave the soundtrack. But I think word of mouth and all the lies that people were telling, coming back, telling these extravagant stories of, "Oh, I went to Freaknik and it was me and 90 women," or whatever they said,
right.
Why do you think they were lies?
Because they're
Oh,
men.
because
Oh, you're right. Go ahead. You're right. Never mind. Go ahead.
well, the reason I know they're lies is because, like I told you, I know a lot of people everywhere. People who were with them told me stuff that happened, told me the truth about it. Like they would tell me, "Oh yeah, I went there and blah blah blah," and they go, "Oh what? He sat in the corner all night," and then some of the girls would tell me, "Oh yeah, he didn't do nothing, or he did X, Y, and Z. We didn't have sex. He did. When the legs go up, what happens?" So it wasn't anything more than
When the legs go up, that's
yeah,
adorable.
yeah. So,
It's
but
not.
it was
I have to tell you that story off camera.
yeah. A lot of that stuff that people told me, because like I said, I know a lot of people in a lot of different places, and I would hear
Listen,
stories, and then years later, like, "Oh, he told you that? Hell no, I wouldn't let him."
okay,
Blah
so
blah
you
blah.
personally knew of lies. Gotcha.
I knew for a fact that there were lies, because when he told them, these guys were telling me this stuff. Some of them I knew to be true. I knew to be true because they had footage of, and they showed me footage of what was going on. the ones that were telling me these extravagant stories were sort of like, I know you, and you can't. I've never seen you get that off ever around anyone ever.
Wow.
So you all of a sudden you go to away college and you just you're the Mac. Like I don't see that playing out.
Wow.
So
That has happened though. You do get your glow up sometimes in college. That freshman year. So it is possible, but you also know the guys that, like you said, nah, that's not you. But you come back with this salacious story. Like, come on.
I know a guy. I'm saying that, I know a guy who's like a nerd, went away to college, and because he was from New York, New Jersey area,
Mhm.
and told everybody like he was some sort of gangster. So he started dressing like Onyx and had on like the army fatigues and the boots, and people thought he was like the super thug. And I was like, such and such. Yeah, I was like, I was gonna say his name too. It almost slipped out too. I was gonna say, yeah, but no. And I was like, oh, word. He changed it whole, and it came back. He had a different bop to him, and like, man, whatever. If you like it, I love it. But these,
Wow, that's funny.
and here's the crazy part: the stories that he was telling in college. I mean, in college, the stuff that happened to him were stuff he made up. And when I was in high school with him, all the stuff that he was telling people in college, I was actually doing, and I never told any of them. I mean, I'll tell you, like getting shot at and getting into fights in the clubs and all the stuff, all the stupid stuff I was doing in high school. I would, and they were telling these stories elsewhere.
So wait, was he using your stories to tell in college?
Yes.
Hmm.
That
Interesting.
sounds
And
like
not,
people who move down to Atlanta and they just completely reinvent themselves. So
Mhm.
that goes back to a couple episodes we talked about before about deleting your whole face. I guess
And
you
you
could do that.
start over.
Yeah. So, okay, my next question is, and then we'll go to the last portion of the read. Does Black youth culture and ratchet culture go hand in hand?
no, I'm gonna say BBLs and ratchet culture go hand in hand because God dog, these BBLs have changed the game. The way these women dress, the way they act, uh, just the whole thought process is completely different from when I was still juicy, as my granny would say. Like you have these clothing lines now that's specifically made for women with BBLs, like Fashion Nova, Shein, like everything is nothing left to the imagination. I won't say rap music because I grew up on Luke and Poison Clan. I grew up like Jeezy taught me how to cook it in the kitchen, but I'm not doing any of those things, you know. But these BBLs, like you see these women now, and they have on nothing. Like there's nothing left to the imagination. Even looking at the documentary, and they were talking about the Daisy Dukes, and you compare the shorts to today to that, and it's like a piece of cloth. These girls are like leaving the house now with no bottoms on at all, just straight ass cheeks, just
What do
out.
you blame that on? Is that the parents' fault, or is that the like? Cause like I know I couldn't go out the house dressed any old way. I'm talking about my parents like you represent us. You got to have on clean clothes, and when you're a kid, you wear clothes. Or I couldn't dress like some guy off the street. I couldn't even speak like some. Don't bring that street talk in the house. I was had that sort of upbringing. So is it the parents?
Yeah, no, because I mean, I'm thinking about my parents and what I left the house in, and what I actually went out in. They didn't know, but I made sure I had the outfit that they saw me in. I made sure I had that on when I walked back in the door. So I think it's just a part of just being young. Like I remember times going to the club in December and I had on a summer dress with some open toe sandals. But as an adult, as a woman now, I know that I can put on more clothes and still feel sexy versus what I did in my 20s. Like I used to wear mini skirts and like blazers with I had on a bra, but no top underneath. But that was cute at the time. I look back at those pictures today and it's like, ooh, what was I thinking? But still didn't compare to some of the things that I see today that make me want to clutch my pearls because it's just you got on a whole little bodysuit is see-through, but I see your little pasties on your boobs and I see your black thong that doesn't match anything, but you just wanted that thong to be seen. So I just think it might be reality TV.
Okay, hold up. I just gotta. Is it possible? Can I use one of those pictures that you have of yourself as the cover photo for this episode?
Let me look through my phone.
I'm just joking. I'm not gonna use it. I'm not gonna use it.
Eh,
So reality
I
TV,
don't.
you think?
I
So
just think it's a shock value thing. Is you know we. I don't know how old you are, Kristen. I'm 44 now.
24.
she's
Shut up. Shut
square that by
that mouth. Quiet yourself. Vanessa
she's
is
44
speaking.
squared.
Oh,
She's 44 squared.
and she talked with
So
that. Go ahead.
so we're seasoned, right? We're seasoned like a fine wine. Like we're not old, we're seasoned. And I just
Seasons.
no
Kristen's like blood
Uh-uh.
seasoned.
pressure seasoning.
I
That's
don't
adobo and extra
Will
salt.
you let her speak?
I don't know,
Okay.
Ab. Like seriously. Mm, I don't
Okay,
know.
so
It's just
let me ask you a follow-up question. Let me ask you a follow-up question. And then Kristen, because I want to ask you the same thing. At what point did Black youth culture become ratchet culture? Maybe that might be the first part of it. At what point did it become ratchet culture?
okay. Again, I grew up with Luke. Like again, my brother's 10 years older than me, so I was exposed to a lot at 10 years old when he was 20. Okay. So I mean, gosh, I grew up with Luke. I grew up with that. I also remember hearing stories allegedly about like Trina. And I mean, I can let me go back. Put it in your mouth. That was like one of the staple songs of like high
Akinelli.
school. Little Kim,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I idolized Lil Kim. I would listen to hardcore before I went out in college. Like I had to get my mind right.
Get
But
prepared.
shit straight like 9:15, know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no. I mean, I think it was always there. I mean, even if you look back, like Baby Esther, Betty
Mhm.
Boop, the
Mhm.
real Betty Boop, or Josephine Baker, hell, even Elvis, that had touches of shock value for that time.
Little
I
Richard.
just,
Mhm.
Little Richard, yeah, and
Billy
I don't
Jackson.
know, but is it tied to a young culture? Yes, because it's the young, they're going to push the limits. What can we do that that's more shocking from the previous generation?
So same
I don't know.
same questions to you, Kristen. Does Black youth culture go hand in hand with ratchet culture? And at what point did Black youth culture become ratchet culture?
I don't think they go hand in hand. Because you got plenty of young Black kids out here doing other things. My son's not ratchet. He doesn't
So let me
partake.
phrase that. Let me phrase that. Black youth popular culture go hand in hand with ratchet culture.
Today, it kind of seems like, yeah. I feel like somehow the stripper world blew up and came out and took over. And I think all those different elements that you mentioned supported everything else that Vanessa mentioned, Luke, the Trina, and like I said, I mentioned Millie Jackson. it just kind of, I guess it just grew to a point where it couldn't be left in the dark after a certain time. It just kind of has flourished to the point where now it's like, it's here, we're here, we're here. And it, gone are the days of this is adult stuff versus this is what everybody's just seeing and hearing and doing and experiencing. But it seemed like that stripper culture kind of really just went next level, because I know that I've had coworkers in the past and some of their shoes, the platform heel shoes, to me look like they came fresh off the pole. And I'm like,
Girl.
you wearing these in the office? Am I approved? I am approved, because I'm just like, no, them some pole shoes right there. They shouldn't be in the office. Um, and the tight clothes. And even when you look at the documentary, though, the attire of the women back then, even when they're bent over and doing their little twerking or whatever, booty shaking, they still look so much more clothed than what we see
Yeah, they
today.
had on baggy jeans and
I
loose
mean,
fitting
Yeah,
shirts.
yeah,
Yeah.
they were
they
like
had the
fully,
Aaliyah look.
they were like fully covered. And Aaliyah even had moments where she might have revealed a little bit of something and had sexiness with her, but she never looked ratchet.
Well,
Aaliyah never
because
looked
it wasn't everything, right? It was she might have showed like some belly, but her
right,
jeans were baggy.
right.
But now it's just like ass out, titties
Everything.
out, everything's out. But it could be Ab and Kristen, it could be the internet. Because even like Yin Yang Twins, what was Nelly with the credit card tip
Swiping.
Oh,
drill,
tip drill. Yeah, tip
swiping
drill.
tip drill? And just thinking about that culture, I want to say maybe the internet might be more responsible for that, for helping to push that narrative, because we didn't have the internet, we had videos. And
Mhm.
then even with the BT, what was that, Uncut After Dark?
Mm,
What
yep.
was it?
BT
And then
uncut.
so you saw those type of videos. But I want to say, I mean, because gosh, even Luke and Poison Clan, they glorified strippers.
Hmm.
Mhm. But
So I don't know.
somehow it did definitely grow into this mainstream existence, because speaking of Nelly, Spellman declined him coming to participate in whatever
Hmm.
function they had
It was,
because
it
of
was
that,
bone
because
marrow. It was
of the
bone marrow
video.
donation he was doing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So I mean, so there was an attempt to try to keep things like within reason and boundaries, and no, we're gonna draw the line here. But now it's just everything is kind of, I guess, I don't know, where do you think, Slappy?
I think this is something put on Black youth that has been American culture for a very long time. I think that they take their debauchery and project it on us, because before the Freaknik, I can remember MTV showing videos of Poison and all these girls dancing on stripper poles before that was a black thing. I can remember Tawny Katane being half naked. I can remember even during the same around the same time, Baywatch was popular in the '90s because women were running around
Yeah.
the beach half nude. I think uh, strip culture was always something. The debauchery of tearing up stuff, that was always like a white thing that they did at bars. And if you can remember anything that happened with Guns N' Roses and all those groups of the rock group down in Hollywood, California, tearing up clubs at night. If you even go further back than that and go to the '60s and '70s and hear what these rock bands would do when they would come into town and they would tear up hotels and have
A lot of
fun and make
drugs, a lot
a
of
lot of
death.
drugs. All
Mhm.
that stuff is stuff that they were doing. And then that gravitated to college kids doing it, because I knew a bunch of white college kids who were doing way worse stuff than
Always.
than than the black. As a matter of fact, in high school, I knew the white
Hmm.
kids were doing stuff called farm parties, what now I know as just they would
Raves,
all hmm, raves. But
raves.
what they would do is that they would take raid their parents' drug cabinets, grab
Hmm.
a pill, and then they would take all the pills, throw it into a bowl, and everybody would have to take a handful of pills and wash it down with some alcohol, and then party would go. But you don't know what was in those pills. There could have been all sorts of this whatever it was, pills going together. But it was, So I do think that I do what obsessed me most about black culture, and this isn't completely I don't have a complete thought about this, so this is just me talking loosely. Is I don't like that some of the times we feel like we have to do what white culture does in order to compare. Like if someone talks about a crime, then we talk about a crime. Like, oh, they got the mafia. Oh yeah, well we got the such and such. Like we always comparing our debauchery to their debauchery, and sometimes we adopt certain things, which is part of living in America, I guess, because it's a melting pot that you adopt other people's cultures and stuff. But some of the things that they adopt from us, or some of the things that we adopt from them, aren't the best things in terms of our culture, in terms of how we look at money and people and capitalism and things of that nature. But I do know also, I do think that there's an element with regards to ratchet culture that this is something from slavery still attached to us. The over sexualization of our bodies, the over sexualization of our women, the over sexualization of our men, the loose, constant having sex with no sort of responsibility for what happens after. I do think that's a hang on from slavery. And I know people hate it, be saying, "Oh, it's," but I do think there's an element that there. But I don't know if it goes hand in hand with. I think it's a morphed into ratchet culture. But I don't have, like I said, I'm thinking about it. I don't quite have the thought completed.
So
So,
it's rooted in
Kristen,
anti-blackness.
I think some of it is rooted in anti-blackness in terms of the stuff that the black kids were doing at Freaknik were no different than what the black white kids were doing everywhere else. It just seems like we had a better soundtrack than they did.
Well, we always do.
Yeah.
But yeah, because just you listen off the rock bands, the hair bands or whatever, just made me think about MTV Spring Break. So I've always gone to like a PWIs,
Mhm.
even high schools. And that was the first time that I, learned about mono, because that wasn't anything that was going around with the black kids. It was
White kids
white
kissing
kids
on each
doing the
other.
three-way kissing. No, but the
Yeah.
three-way kissing, and yeah,
Hmm.
you're right. There's levels
Kristen,
to it,
you
definitely.
you you asked about to ask something.
Yeah, I'm not sure I was clear on where you, or was it that you weren't sure where you thought that the ratchet culture took over?
What I was saying is that I think it's a confluence. One part, the ratchet culture coming from us adopting what we saw on MTV and these videos and things that came out that were way ratchet. They were doing the stuff in music videos with the strippers before before Two Live Crew was even a thing or even a group. You can look in the videos and see what the rock bands were doing with naked girls on poles and strippers and things of that nature. And then the other part was, I don't know if this is still hang on from the over sexualization of black people from slavery on to modern time, because black bodies has been and always been a commodity in this country for a whole host of things. And sex is one part of it. Sex, labor, sports, it's always our black bodies used as form of entertainment. And I don't know if we sort of to adopt that idea about it ourselves.
Well, on
I
that
don't.
particular note, I don't think that black people are over sexualized. I think that's white people labeling us what they believe. We're perfect as we are and
Yeah.
What do
sexual.
you okay? Hold on. So what do you think when I said black people are over sexualized? I don't think we're over sexualized ourselves. I think they look at us and say, "Oh, look at this, look at
That's
that."
exactly that's what I'm saying. Like
Okay.
white America labels us as over sexualized and we're this and we're that, when I think we're perfect as we are. Black people are perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
here and there with some stuff, but I mean, it's like we're sexual. We're human and we're sexual, but they put these stigmas on us so much so that we then convince ourselves that there's truth to it. You know what I'm saying? So,
Like even look back at Hottentot in Europe, where they took what was her name, Sarah Bartman,
With
mhm,
the big booty.
where they put her in a zoo
I
because
know.
of her anatomy, and then And then look at what they did in Africa, cutting off certain parts of the anatomy of black men, or even, in America during slavery. I think black
That's
sexuality.
that's their thing with us.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I think it's unfair because when have we had autonomy over our bodies as enslaved? We had to sleep with our masters. We were having their babies.
Mhm.
They had whole super slave farms making us have sex with each other to create super slaves. Like
Buck breaking.
we've never had bodily autonomy.
But they want to
Ever.
tell us that we're over sexual.
Right.
I think it even goes as far as to what the word freaknik meant to us, and what the popular culture thought it meant was something completely different. Because to them, freak meant something different to them than it meant to what we were trying to say.
Well, you know what? It's funny you brought that up. What does freak mean to you?
In what I know it to be now, or know it to
No,
be
no.
as in terms of what I knew
What
it.
does freak mean to when you first? All right, let's go with Freaknik. When you heard
Yeah,
Freaknik for the
my
first time,
first heard freaknik. Yep,
what did you think?
sex. There's gonna be a freak party going on. Freakiness. I thought Rick James. I thought all the stuff that but some of the songs that I talked about, girls being freaks come out at night. Like that's what I thought about. I thought
Mhm.
about sex. Even though I know it meant something else with Freaks and Geeks, the shows they show at the circus, I knew it meant that as well. But when they talked about Freaknik and the way that they talked about these kids having sex and running around, I thought it meant freak because of the sex, because of all the songs I've ever heard growing up, that when they referred to freak, they meant freakiness and sex.
Now, when the freaks come out at night, that was not about sex. That was just about the crazy people that came out at night. That wasn't specifically about sex.
One specifically about sex, but I thought it meant specifically sex. The freakiness comes out at night. Like, you know,
Okay.
that's
Vanessa,
how I interpret it.
what did you think when you heard Freaknik?
I just thought same thing. Something freaky going on. Well, look, but that was what my mom interpreted it as.
Mhm.
So that was no, you'll never go again.
Again.
I just thought I just thought it was a wild party. People just letting their inhibitions,
Anything goes, right?
anything goes. Yeah.
And
That's
you,
what
what did you think it meant?
I wasn't the place I needed to be. Freak on the front of anything sounds like anything goes, and I'm not for anything. I'm
Right,
selective.
right. Okay.
Now the
So
selective Nick I'd like an invite to.
so we'll read this last section, and
Oh,
then
okay.
we have a couple questions, and then we'll go to the lesson.
Perhaps the most important point the film makes is why such a gathering was needed in the first place, because Black spring breakers weren't especially prevalent on white Florida beaches. Among other talking heads, the Atlanta rapper Rashida of Love and Hip Hop fame provides keen insight into the local scene and its gender politics, and landing Killer Mike was a huge coup. But by far, the doc's biggest get was the hours of home video that partygoers gave up to reconstruct the time. A lot of folks just had the video on DVD or VHS or high 8 tapes sitting in their garages collecting dust, says Porras, adding that it was Dupree and Campbell who coaxed festival goers into submitting their footage. It created an excitement and a word of mouth started to spread all over again. But of course, we also had to sift through all the footage because there'd be Freaknik shit along with, the family cookout or something on the same tape. If anything, the hoarding underscores a key difference between this generation, and that one, the one that came just before Girls Gone Wild became a thing we capture on video for world's consumption, while they captured it for their own. On a recent episode of his Nightcap podcast, the NFL great Shannon Sharp flashed the handheld he carried with him for his 5 Freaknik trips in the 90s. If y'all break into the house, he joked, you'll never find it. This goes right back to the vault, right back to the bank vault. Also caught on tape in the doc are snippets of the well-documented instances of sexual harassment and assault. a subject area early skeptics of the Freaknik thought might wind up excluded. It hardened the mainstream image of Freaknik as a rager without rules as Atlanta was smartening up to host the 1996 Olympics. Something had to give. And while Freaknik has been rebooted here and there, the rapper 21 Savage made it his 30th birthday party theme. If the doc makes anything clear, it's that nothing will ever come close to the original Bash. I think there's nostalgia because there's a sense of freedom that the social media age of today doesn't give you, Williams says. Imagine if 300,000 people were in the streets of Atlanta in 2024. Nobody stepping on shoes, nobody getting shot, just people in the moment having fun. Freaknik is just one of the biggest things that ever happened from a Black cultural perspective. Freaknik, the wildest party never told. It's now available on Hulu in the US and Disney elsewhere.
Do you think Black youth culture today has their version of Freaknik? And do you think a version or a form of Freaknik can come back the way it was before?
No. And I'm referring to the original early days of what their initial intention was. I'll take that back. Maybe it could, but it would have to be done like very carefully and properly. It would have to be structured in such a way because unfortunately, I don't know what the college kids are doing today, and I don't know what they have, but it's still the case where all students don't get to go home during certain holidays. So it would be nice if Black kids could, come together in a positive, safe environment and have a good time. But that would have to like really be set up carefully.
I'm gonna say yes, and it's called Snapchat. Yeah, no, these kids nowadays, they don't even want to get together. Like everything is just virtual. I mean, even if they're at a concert, they're recording everything. You've seen it.
Mhm.
You've seen it. Like they don't even pay attention to they're not in the moment, therefore recording everything or putting everything on social media. So I think Snapchat gives them that option of what it disappears after 24 hours or something like that. I'm not on Snapchat. But something like face to face in person, no. But I think because they're just so used to having phones in their faces, having devices, that it's just the technology is different for them to do the same things that other people did back in the day.
I think they do have a version of it. We just call them festivals. Coachella, Made in America, the Roots Picnic. I think those are predominantly, even Afropunk. You will get a lot of video, but I do know other stuff goes on at those festivals. But I do think they have a version of it. It's just morphed into something else because I don't think they can separate college youth and the general public from each
Right.
other anymore. I
That
think
part.
Mm-mm.
so.
Agreed.
It had to become, yeah, it had to become a festival. It had to become something for everybody. And in this time, now it's festivals where you can see performing artists. So in the documentary, the guy was trying to do a Freaknik festival, which is literally just a big concert. No different than Woodstock, no different than and mind you, Woodstock, they were doing a whole bunch of nastiness in Woodstock too.
Mm-hmm.
Every version of it, Woodstock 98, what have you. So I think that's what it's become. My next question, let me go to my next question, and we'll go with you, Vanessa. Can Black people have anything?
No, not for a long period of time. It goes back to policing us, right? We can't smile. Like we can't have Black joy. That's too many of y'all, communing together. That's dangerous. No, we cannot. Because like Kristen said earlier, it's you can have a great time and then an element comes in and ruins it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the drug dealers. It's just it changes. It always evolves, and it doesn't always evolve to something positive. Um, like I just think about, in my 20s when I was clubbing and you go to the new spot and it's so nice and but then that certain element starts to come in and then it changes and now you have fights at this club where you normally wouldn't. So I think it's a combination of how those elements change, and people don't want us to have a good time. They don't want our money. They do want our money, but no, not here. Go somewhere else. And I think it's always an element of that. It circles back to the anti-blackness.
By the way, we refer to that element as them niggas. Anytime them niggas show up, it just
Pretty
goes
much.
bad.
Yeah.
Hate to say it, but
Yeah.
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 And so here them niggas come. So it's always so.
Yeah.
Kristen, same question: can Black people have anything?
For a limited time only, but I mean, I think that is so unfortunately real that you've got Black people and then you got niggas, and niggas ruin everything. And I mean, it's if Black people can be strategic in keeping it moving in a certain way, then yeah, you can have it. You just got to be strategic. As soon as you see a nigga show up, you're gonna have to just reroute, recalculate. It's so true. They won't. So yeah, we can though.
I would say Black people can have something, but we're just too obsessed with white culture. Every time we get
Oh,
something,
that part. No, that's something else.
we so even with the nigga part, even with that part, there's always been element of us having stuff, and then the street elements come, and we're able to police them. The Black Panthers were able to do it, and the Nation of Islam were able to do it. Like we could police where both the street element and whatever Black culture, however you want to define that, gets together. They do something, and because there's a security base, we know that we're not going to mess this thing up because we do it a lot of times. They would do an outreach where they would go, "Hey, listen, we're having a street party, and everybody's invited. We just need to know if you see your ops or whatever it is, no fighting allowed in this place whatsoever. We don't want, what happens when the fight happens, then the police come and blah, blah, blah. Like I've known people who go into communities when they're about to have a Black party in Brooklyn and wherever, and they go to these gang leaders or whatever and say, hey, listen, everybody's invited, everybody's welcome. We'll just keep the peace because if we can't do this, then, and a lot of times most of these street dudes, they have kids and they have moms and they have places that they want to take their kids to without having to have a gun on them all the time. So I think whether we can, that element is not the problem. I think the problem is the indoctrination that we have, that we always want to bring people into our stuff that have nothing to do with our stuff, and then they wind up taking it over or they wind up changing it, or I'm specifically thinking about like what's called the hip hop culture, where it started out as one thing, and then we let everybody constantly inviting people to the picnic, as they say, and then all of a sudden now it's something else. You know what I mean? That people can monetize from it. So I do think Black people can have something, especially like a Freaknik, if we just close the ranks and have conversations amongst one another and says, hey, listen, what happens here is between us. What we do is between us. We can't have you do certain things because you know what happens. The other part that was in the Freaknik documentary that we did not speak about, that had a major part of why Freaknik was shut down, was because of the 96 Olympics. No one had a problem with Freaknik monetarily gaining from it until they can get more money from the 96 Olympics. And then they had to clean up the element, and that element was Black people. Because if that was any other thing, I don't think they would have had an issue with it. It would look like fun.
Well, if you're holding up traffic the way they did, the way they showed, that would be a problem for any
The
incoming event.
traffic holding up was more part of the police blocking off areas, blocking off exits to them to get on. They showed that in the documentary that they blocked off exits row after row so they wouldn't come into the downtown area. I think you could have those conversations with people coming into town and just letting them know,
I don't think
hey,
so.
you don't think so?
Yeah.
No, I don't
No,
think so.
I disagree with that because I-10 was shut down. I'm sorry, 20 was shut down.
Yeah.
People were parking on the highway and just getting out and walking.
And this is before
It,
the Olympics, right? This is
and that
just
was before the
that's just
Olympics.
Freaknik, right?
Yes. And Atlanta traffic has always been terrible,
Mhm.
but you shutting down the highway? And I think that was because, let's be real, cops don't care about Black women getting assaulted. They don't care about us killing each other or fighting each other. That wasn't the issue, but now it's you shutting down the whole highway.
But hold on, a little pushback on that is that's just a planning and preparation thing. I think when the Olympics came to town, the highway wasn't shut off. Why? Because they had help from the city. When Super Bowl goes into town or when FIFA World Cup goes into town, they don't have the same problems because there's a collaboration between city officials and the people throwing the event.
Okay.
I think when it became this thing, the reason why the highway was shut down because that collaboration wasn't there the way it would be for a Super Bowl or for a,
Understood.
you know what I'm trying to say? Because there are way more people
Mm-hmm.
that came into town for the Olympics the previous year or the prior years coming after than we're at Freaknik.
No, but again, you have a different element of people. You didn't have people from the Super Bowl getting out of their cars, shutting their cars off on the highway and walking around. That
because
wasn't happening
because
But
for the
traffic
Super
was
Bowl.
he's saying because they didn't have the support of the city to work with them
to
with
work with them and traffic
tunneling
police
them
and
and
because when he
moving them
finally
this
did
way.
because when he finally did they just shut off all the exits and then pushed traffic all the way down to
Right.
other sections other than downtown. I think that if you had the cooperation of the police and city officials to help plan this thing a bit better, maybe everybody's caught by surprise the first couple of years, but by 95, 94, people should have understood what was going on.
Now,
Okay.
I think that even if they had that, at some point, Black people still would have taken it too far.
But you're
Because
always gonna have
that other element always takes it too
It always, yeah,
but that
Always. If you
but that
say, here's
other
the
element
line, we're gonna go way past that line. Get your
but that
line.
other
Get your
element
line.
that that other element goes to the Super Bowl. They go to All-Star Weekend. They go to everything that I'm talking about. They go to those events. Matter of fact, if you go to a fight night, I don't know if you've ever been to Vegas during Mike Tyson's fights or during a big fight during the Vegas. Every element you're talking about and worse are at the fights, and
Uh-huh.
none of that stuff goes down. You got the dealers, you got the gang members, you got the mob, you got every bad element you can think of condensed in one area and doesn't go down like that, especially in Vegas or in Texas or every place that they have these big, huge fights. Matter of fact, the Garden, any place you can think about. I'm telling you, it's
So all
because there
they
was no
need
cooperation between the
was
police
the
and
city to work with them. That's all they
yeah.
needed.
Mm-hmm. This is my last question, and then we're going to go to the lesson. Has Black youth culture gone too far, or is it the same as it ever was?
Going too far with what?
Whatever you think gone too far means. I'm not going to define it for you. Just gone too far.
No, I
You
don't
gone
think
too far,
I
Wayne.
don't think Black youth culture has gone too far with anything. I think that our people are continuously evolving, creating, expanding, growing. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with everything. It's not necessarily my preference, but isn't that every generation? And there was a time where there were older folks who thought James Brown was a bit much, and every generation is like, "Oh, back in my day," and it's like, "Yeah, well, your day is gone." This is a new day. So nah, the kids are doing them. I think the only problem, and this is not about them going too far. Only problem is they skipping some steps. They just want to go right to win without working their way up to win. And they're skipping some important steps and they don't even care about those steps. They're just like, that's what y'all did. We're doing this. And it's like, I hear you, but you're missing some important elements. You know, nobody wants to pay dues. They just want to do their thing, but they're unstoppable. Let them do it. They're in a different time. They're living and functioning in a different way. All they know is computers. Like they don't even know about CDs. Like these kids only they're like CDs. What is get that thing out of here? VHS. Oh my God. So they're doing their thing. Phones today, you can do so much from a phone today. They're in a world of technology that is zooming. So just let them go ahead on and do their things. I don't want to know what color their booty hole is, though. I don't want to know that. I'm sorry.
No, I concur with you with that. Oh my gosh. No, I agree. I don't think they've gone too far. I just think that the technology is a lot different, where they have access to information. There's no filter on it, on what they can research or search up, as that's the new term that I just found out. My 11-year-old told me that. But I just kind of feel like they don't have the education, like they don't have the word, so everything is just in your face. But they are a part of this microwave society where everything is instant now. Everything is a snippet. You got to tell me everything that you know in 90 seconds or less. And that's how they feed, filter in their information, and that's how they spit it out. And because it's just thinking about Marvin Gaye, Sexual Healing. Like, you had some songs in your face back in the day, but now today is like, I want to fuck. And I grew up with Truth.
No, hold up.
All
Have
I
you
do
ever
is
heard
love
Marvin
you.
Gaye, Soon I'll Be Loving You?
Yeah, well, yes, I have. I mean, I grew up in a very musical family. I mean, gosh, my dad still had his reel to reels. He still had all his albums. Like he had the 8-track. Like he had all of this technology. And yeah, like these kids, they don't know that. Like you said, I mean, they don't even know the rotary phones. They don't pay phones. Like they've never had to deal with that where we've had to. But at the same time, is like you said, Kristen, they're skipping steps. But I mean, but you got kids playing with toys on YouTube making millions of dollars. We didn't have those type of options. So no, they're gonna go a lot further. I just wish that they would be more educated with it, because there's a way to be tactful to say things instead of just pound town.
I do think that the kids have gone too far in the way of no self-control. I do know that in certain generations prior to this one, there are things that you wouldn't do in front of an adult, even if it's an adult that you didn't know. And I think these kids today don't care. They'll do whatever in front of whoever, whenever, however, because they don't have the respect for maybe adults, maybe even to that part. And I don't know when it gotten to the point of where getting older is a bad thing. Where I do hear a lot of people going, I want to die young, or, referring to old head as like something that's like they don't want to get older. They just want to be a youth forever. And I know youth has been popularized for a very long time in the American culture, that we lionize youth just for the fact that they're youth, nothing more than that. But I do think we've gone too far with regards to the violence. Even if you look at back in the 80s and 90s, if you can look at any documentary, what have you, even the gang members in certain neighborhoods wouldn't do certain things to certain people if your grandmother was around, or speak a certain way, or smoke, or curse, or profane, all these things that they wouldn't do. And these were some of the toughest of tough guys who lived in environments and areas that know it was like war zones. And even they had a level of self-control that they wouldn't do in front of women and kids, which is to me my biggest concern. And nowadays, it's just, if I see ops, it's on site, and I'm gonna piss on your grave, and then they'll tell you about it. They'll make songs about it. They'll put it in some of the biggest what you want to call tough guys, the street guys, the gangsters, weren't singing songs about the crimes that they were committing. They weren't. I said some, not all, Vanessa. I said some.
My fofo make sure all your kids won't grow. That's Hit 'em Up. That was 96, was it not? Tupac?
Yeah, that was 96, but Tupac wasn't a tough guy.
Ooh.
He was an actor.
He still put it on wax.
Yes, but I'm talking about the guy who were the tough guys who were making the real tough guys out there, the Freddie Foxes and the Big Daddy Kanes and the people who are out
That
there
guy.
who are out there like really putting in work in the streets.
Tell you
We're
my
not.
Freddie Fox story. Did I tell you my Freddie Fox story? Did I ever tell
No,
you?
tell me a Freddie Fox story.
Oh,
I don't even
please
know
do.
him. I don't even know him, but he told, well, it's not a story. It's always a moment. I don't even know him, but I met him on the set with a friend of mine, some one of those videos they were doing in Brooklyn. And somehow he turns around and tells somebody I was one of his prostitutes. What?
Mm.
Just like that. Just
So
like
were
that.
you were you his bottom bitch or were you just one of the regular
You know
prostitutes?
what, Slappy?
Were
Slappy.
you making enough money for Freddie is the
As
question.
it turns out, you were his bottom bitch. Okay. Plot twist.
Tabo ho.
I was so mad because I was working for Rush Communications at the time, and I was just like, I don't need that out there like that. Then there was a concert that was going on for Redman at Academy Theater, and I was sitting in the balcony. I was working that particular show, and he was like at a diagonal, and another friend of mine was like, Chris, can you see from there? And I was like, a little bit, move over just a little bit. And he had turned around and waved to me, and she did that all simultaneously. I motioned for her to move forward just a little bit. She took a step up, blocked him, and I was like, that's perfect. But he saw the whole thing go on. But I couldn't believe he did that to me. I didn't know him. And I didn't understand that.
Did you give Freddie his money? Did you give Freddie his money?
Bitch better have my money. Hey.
Well, no. But anyways, to finish up that thought, I do think every generation pushes the line a little bit more than they used to. I think there was a psychologist or sociologist who was talking about from the 1950s to current days, and he says that every generation pushes our culture by 5 degrees. So he examined it like it was water. So every generation of five. So if the water's cold, and then 5 degrees, 5 degrees, every generation. So now you can compound all those 5 degrees. It's boiling now because it's added on to what has been before. So Tupac's story hit him up. Now people are actually talking about committing actual crimes on records and giving details about it and it being used in court. Hit him up was the worst he said was the most truest thing he said probably in there was I fucked your bitch. Other than that, the rest of it was just him just fantasizing about what he would do to his enemies, as opposed to now you got little schmucky fuck talking about how I buried your mother and I shot you in the face and then you buried you on Tuesday and at 4 o'clock and while your mother, such and such was around the corner. And then the police look at that and they go, okay, solve this crime.
You
So
sound like a
Well, yeah, but that's true because these cops now they go straight to social media to your page if you suspected of doing anything. Hell, Young Thug on trial right now for the same thing.
every person who
So
I knew who
Rick Ross, Snoop,
Rick Ross, a person I knew who committed a crime, you couldn't talk to them on camera. You couldn't, they didn't even like you filming them or recording them. You couldn't put a camera on them
right?
at all. Like they thought you were the feds. That's the first thing they thought. I mean, get that shit out of my face. Oh, don't. Or you had to ask before you started filming them. You would be like, is it okay if I film this? Nowadays, they just run up to you with the camera and start recording you without
Or
permission.
or you actually get robbed and then your robbers on social media flashing all
With
your
the
jewelry and your
jewelry, with
and
the
your
jewelry
yeah.
flashing it. Yeah.
so you
So
think they've gone too far, huh, Slap?
I think it's gone way too far. I think the reins have uh if we let go of the reins and let them run wild. I think part of it is this gentle parenting stuff that people are into now.
Back in the day when like you found out that your parents had to come up to the school
Mm-hmm.
and there was a certain decorum that your parents had. Now you have parents coming up to the school to fight the teachers. So to kind of piggyback off of what Abdul was saying, you know, the parents are different.
Well, now I do recall when I was in high school visiting my friend's high school here in Orange, and a parent came up there to fight another student. She threatened all the students. So hood shit been around for a while.
Oh wow, yeah. So
She was like, I whoop everybody's. She was going off, and I just remember thinking, why is this parent talking to students like this? I
Yeah.
came from a different household. So I came from the household where we had some type of boundaries and we understood this is
mhm,
our child, not the same thing. But I also recognized that, okay, this is some hood stuff going on right here. And it was a whole different set of rules for the hood folk because she was threatening
mhm,
everybody.
yep. So the parents are definitely different. I mean, you have parents, you have moms going to the clubs with their daughters.
Hmm.
You have parents wanting to be friends instead of parents
Hmm.
to their kids. So
Yeah.
it's different. It's mm,
It
I
is
think that's
different.
across the board too.
I've
Yeah.
even I've even
yeah,
experienced that with some of my friends with how they interact with me with their kids, and I have to draw the line because I'm just like, I'm not friends with your child.
right.
You're not we One of my friends, I asked her a question about, are you gonna start dating again? And her daughter chimed in and I was like, hey, I'm not having this conversation. Like, this is not a group conversation. This is me and your mom talking. So there are some people who just kind of allow their kids a certain degree of freedom that I'm just like, no, I'm old school. We're not having this conversation. They're not us.
Now we're at the final part of it where we go for the lesson. So for this particular one, because she is the guest this week, I will let Vanessa go first. So Vanessa,
Woo!
what lesson did you learn from this episode?
If you're gonna do dirt, don't put it on film.
That's a good one. Once it's out there, it's out there.
It's
That
out
that's
there.
that's it. Just if you're
That's
gonna
it. Clean it to the point. You know, like nobody are angels. However, come on, I'm not a devil either. So the dirt that I've done, I've made sure to keep it on the low and keep it to myself. Then you don't have to worry about you showing up on the Freaknik documentary 20 something years later.
Kristen, what lesson did you learn from this episode?
I don't know if it's necessarily a lesson or something that I've just always tried to live by is, try to roll in a way that I wouldn't want it to come back and embarrass me. For me, just for me.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I make decisions on whatever, I'm just like, now, if this goes down and I'm on the news and they ask me, so you got in the car and you didn't know who the driver was? Like, I really make decisions on how I would look back on something just to make good decisions.
Let's make good decisions. Okay.
Yeah.
My lesson the lesson I learned from this episode is that if you're black and you're going to try to do something that can be monetized or popularized, you better circle the wagons because there's going to be elements outside of your control that are going to come in and mess it up for everybody. And sometimes it's the elements that you don't think of that have the worst effect on what you're doing.
Okay. This is the lesson that you learned from the Freaknik episode of
Yeah.
Ignorance is Contagious.
Mm-hmm. Because it started off as something wholesome and something nice to do. And if they would have circled the wagons and got all the things that the things that they weren't even thinking about, security and
Founders?
traffic, huh?
Okay. The founders. Okay.
The founders, the things that they were even thinking about, that's when it got messed up, when other elements got involved, when other elements didn't get the conversation or weren't spoken to. And then when it could be monetized and people knew that, oh, okay, I can make money off this thing if I rent my house out to this people or rent my garage or sell food on the street or whatever it is. And then it became even bigger when the city got involved. Like, oh, it's bringing in X amount of money. Once it starts generating money, and once it starts getting other elements outside of your intended goal, it's going to mess up. So you're better off circling the wagons and making sure that you have all these bases covered to prevent these things from happening, especially the monetization of it, because a lot of the money didn't go to a good portion of it went outside of your community. It could have been better. They could have had something set up where they had bus services bringing people back and forth, so people wouldn't have drove into town. They could have set up something with different airlines to have a Freaknik package that people could come in and get a discount. They could have other things happening going on that we used to do before. Like if you look at the Green Book, or if you know anything about the Green Book, when bands would come into town, they had certain things set up in environments because they knew outside elements would harass and attack these people. And I think that happened with this, especially when all of this money started pouring in to Atlanta and people wanted a piece of it. And it wasn't just the Black people. It was a lot of white people who wanted to monetize and benefit from what was going on in this environment.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that happens, you can count down the time where it's about to get taken away from you, or they're about to shut it down. You either cut them in and they get a piece of it, or they're going to shut you down, or it's just and they're going to blame you and label this particular event the worst of the worst because you're Black.
That's a hell of a lesson.
That's what I got from it. Thank you, Vanessa, for being a guest on our show. We really appreciate it, for being the third person. Say something, nigga.
Thank you for having me.
Right.
Give me an opportunity. I might have wanted to bust on James real quick.
Right. Oh yeah. So anything? What you got, Vanessa? So Vanessa listens to the episode every week and gives me feedback on everything. Like everything.
Wait, one of my best lines is, James, is that not a symbol? Kristen, when Abdul was trying to go in on you one day, and he talked all the way around the subject for you to say, is that not a symbol? When I tell you, you are the highlight.
Thank you.
Your voice is amazing.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Academy. All the little people I stepped on.
It's so nice to actually get to meet you and put a face to a name. So this whole experience has been wonderful. Ab, I love you. I've had a ball.
Two.
I enjoyed you on this also, Vanessa. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
I'll give you kudos for that, Ab.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's it.
Appreciate both of you for coming on the show and telling stories about Super Dick and everything else. It's never gonna go away. If I could change the name under this thing from Kristen J to Super Dick, I would do it right now.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, on my phone, it might be consumer of Super Dick. Super
That's
receptacle. No, it's gonna be super receptacle.
Let me change that name on that phone right now.
Yeah. Super receptacle. Yeah. Anyway.
It was a super.
Yeah. You look at you reminiscing.
Sorry, I'm back.
Eyes glazing over, smile won't break. Yeah.
Make your head pop off.
This has been another episode of the Ignorance Contagious podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, Kristen.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
The Rock is in the building. Facto.